my clothes will change because I'm going to make this one over a few days. So it's going to take a bit more time putting the video together. Last week was very much about doing one while I was motivated to do it. Now I feel a little bit more comfortable with it. I'll take a bit more time and just make it a bit nicer, hopefully. But as I said, this is about how I got into powerlifting and how I got into powerlifting coaching specifically. So we're in 2020 now. In 2013, I began as a personal trainer in what used to be LA Fitness. I think is now still Sports Direct Fitness. It might be Everlast, or I think it's Sports Direct Fitness. So I became a PT there, and then that's generally a commercial gym. So I couldn't really focus on coaching people in strength sports or powerlifting or anything beyond just general training, to be honest, in that gym. So that getting into powerlifting coaching then was difficult. So I never really pushed it. It was mainly just make a living as a PT. So it was more about getting just general clients. I mean, not that there's anything wrong with coaching people like that. That's fine. I still coach people like that now. But the way I wanted to niche was powerlifting. But at the time, I couldn't, so it was on the back burner. I did decide to try powerlifting myself at the time, so around end of 2013, start of 2014. I was struggling with anxiety, depression, that kind of thing, and I needed something to focus on. So I remember specifically at the start of 2014 finding a competition that was on in November, which was the Northwest Championships at the IPF, so the Northwest Powerlifting. And I decided to just focus on that. And as I was training for that, a bench press only competition came up for the September. So I entered that, and that was my first competition in powerlifting. Learned a lot that day. The gym that it was in was hidden away underneath and behind the restaurants. It was hard to find. It wasn't a bad gym, not at all. A little bit small, a little bit cramped for what you would need for a competition now. Back in 2014, it wasn't as popular as it is now. So you could do a competition there back then. It would be far too small now though. So that competition, I entered as an 83 kilo lifter. I got there and discovered that my scales were completely wrong. So I was actually weighed in as 85, which is a pretty big difference. So I ended up competing as a 93. I opened with 120 kilo on bench. That was fine. Went for 125, failed it. Went for 125 again, failed that. So the first competition, I went 1 for 3. So a lot of people focus on trying to get perfect for the first comps. It doesn't matter. The best thing to do is just get there, get the experience, and you'll enjoy it. I enjoyed that. It was fine. I actually ended up winning gold medal because the only other 93 kilo lifter there also benched 120, but he was a couple of kilo heavier than me. I can't remember how much heavier, but I was a light 93 because I tried to be an 83. But yeah, I learned a fair bit from that, mainly where the gym was, because the next competition was in the same gym. So that competition was September 2014, and then the Northwest Championship of 2014 was in November. So for that competition, found where the gym was easily. That was good. The main mistake I did make was that I made all my food for the day and then left it at home. So yeah, and also sorry, just nearly dropped my headphones. Also, back then, as it was starting to get more popular, and I don't think the federation was expecting that, it was a very long day. So whereas now you'd get an exact lift off time, or almost exact, back then we got there at 9, weighed in, and I don't think the 93 started lifting until about 5 o'clock. So it was a long day. I was there for a while before we actually lifted. So I ended up going to a nearby off license to get a meal deal or something like that. I remember getting a sandwich and a drink, and yeah, it wasn't ideal. But again, that was my preparation more than anything. So that day I ended up failing my first squat on depth because I wasn't really sure what depth was. I was training myself, so most of my feedback just came from how I felt. Also in Sports Direct, or LA Fitness as it was then, the squat rack, the pins on it are set and they're very high, which I didn't realise was actually higher than where I needed to go. So eventually I started having to walk it all the way out, so it used to be 6 steps back as soon as I went back to squat, which wasn't ideal. But anyway, I failed that first squat, which was an opener of 175. Did it again on my second attempt, fine. Did 185, easy. And then on bench, because I'd messed up a little bit on the at the bench competition, I opened at 117, and then I think I went 122 because I wanted to make sure my second attempt was a slight PB, and that was fine. And then I got 127, which was pretty easy. And then deadlift. What was deadlift? I think I went 215, 225, 230, but I got 8 out of 9. I finished, I think, about 6. I can't remember. But it was a really good comp. I really enjoyed it. After that, where was I? 2014. End of 2014, nothing really exciting happened after that. The next competition was May, but by that point I was working as a PT, getting fairly busy as well, working in support work, because to be a PT at the time you used to have to pay £500 rent to the gym, so support work was covering that rent. I was also in college because I have a degree in theology and religious studies, but not sports exercise science. So I went back to college to get the qualifications to go and do a degree. Turned out that I couldn't get funding to do a degree afterwards anyway, but I still went back to college and finished the year. But to coincide with that, the next competition I did was the end of May. No, the start of May, sorry, so the end of the academic year. And as I said, I was incredibly busy going into that. My training was a bit crap, I'm not going to lie. I used to really just put my training on the back burner. So I might have been doing a shift in my support work job, 7:30 till 4, and then I'd have clients in the gym until about 7. So then I'd be training at 8 o'clock, and then gym might shut at 9. So a lot of my sets would be, I might just do like 2 sets instead of 4, that kind of thing. I also just wasn't making enough time. So that competition was definitely the worst comp I've done. So the first one, there was a weird one on squats on the first attempt. The referee waved to give me the squat command, did the squat. Then he told me that my knees weren't locked at the start, so I could do it again then. Whereas I'm pretty sure the rule is that if you have to redo a squat, you do it at the end of the round. So my head was gone by that point. Coupled the weird decision plus the fact that I hadn't been training well just threw my head completely. So that's on me. I'm not blaming the referee for that. I mean, it was a weird decision, but the rest of it was my fault. Then I instantly failed that one. Then the next one, the head was still gone. So my actual second attempt, although it was my third of the day, I did the squat absolutely fine, and then stupidly stepped before the rack command, which is a really annoying way to fail a lift, and you see so many beginners doing it. So then the third one, I wouldn't always recommend this to clients, but I just decided to put weight on it. I knew I could do the lift. I'd done it 3 times, and I just done it stupidly. So I ended up putting a bit of weight on it, so it went up to 187, so it would have been a comp PB. I had done 200, no, I'd done about 195 in the gym at the time. So I was confident with 187.5. Did it absolutely fine. And then on bench, the barbell I was using in the warm area was different to what I expected. I ended up changing my hand position, which again wouldn't suggest to any clients, any potential lifters now. I failed the first attempt on 125, got the second, and then the third one I think I went for 130, it just didn't move. And then deadlifts, I got 3 for 3 on this. Deadlifts was the saving grace. I think I got 237.5 at the end of the day. I ended up qualifying for British. I know I said It was the worst competition I ever did. Experience-wise, it was the worst. I did get a slight PB, but it was 2.5 kilo, and it was 6 months after my first competition. So I wasn't very happy with that. I ended up getting a coach. Like that day, I decided to get a coach. So I remember I contacted Steve Emanuel, and he started coaching me for the month after. And then over that summer, I made some good gains. It was good time for training. I was able to just sort of leave the coaching with him because I just needed to be accountable to someone. And I knew that if it was to myself, I'd easily just not do the stuff. I also, probably not a great idea, I also quit my other job, the support work job. But if I hadn't done that, I wouldn't be in the position I'm in now. It was difficult at the time. So I was just living out my overdraft for a long time. So when British came in October, I went into it with a bit more confidence because my training had gone really well. I opened on 190 squat, considering that my comp PB was 187. I was happy with that. I then went for 200, fine. 205, fine. Now again, bench is where I had fun. The planned open was 125. Opened on it, failed it. Second attempt, failed it. Third attempt, it flew. Like I had a screenshot where Steve Emanuel's watching me, and he looks really annoyed about how quick the third attempt went. It was just sort of like, what are you doing? So yeah, I'm still not sure what I was doing. And then deadlifts went lovely. So I got, what did I open with? I opened on 225, 235, and then I didn't want to go 240 or 245 because I got them in the gym and they were easy. So I went straight for 250 and it was fine. So I ended up getting, I think it was a 37.5 kilo total PB, which I was very happy with. And then the next competition was Northwest Champs again in 2015. Now that one, me and another powerlifter had a bet about who would beat the other. It wasn't anything serious. It was just like whoever wins will buy the other one like a crate of beer, which I still haven't got, by the way. So it was an interesting one because it's an interesting one because me and the other powerlifter, Bobby, we had similar squats. He had a better bench and I had a better deadlift. So it was going to be fairly close. So going into it, I opened on 190 squats again, 200 for second attempt, 210 for third, and it was fine. And then bench, I went 120, fine, 125, fine, 130, just sort of went halfway up and then stopped. And then when it came to deadlift, it looked like me and Bobby were sort of neck and neck, but then when it came to deadlift, I opened on 235. I think my planned open was 230, and then Stephen changed it because he wanted to make the competition more fun, basically. The competition between me and Bobby. So I got 235. Then I got 250 second attempt. And that was surprisingly easy. I remember I had a really bad eczema on my finger, and I remember my grip was a bit funny, and that was distracting me. But the 250 was fine. And then it got to a point where it was like, if I went for 15 kilo PB on deadlift, I would have won the Northwest and qualified for British. So it's just a matter of, just go for it. Let's see. It's the last deadlift of the session. I remember going out to the lift, going to pick it up, thinking this isn't going to move, and then it started moving, and I was like, this is unexpected. Got it to the top, put it down, I had 3 red lights because my knees weren't locked. Never had that issue with deadlifts before, never had it since, but it was the right call. I've seen the video from the side, they definitely unlocked. So then I ended up finishing 4th, when I very nearly finished 1st. I very nearly became a Northwest champion. Then the next comp after that was, I'm not going to go through all the comps, by the way, just these ones are the main ones. Next comp after that was the team competition in March. No, yeah, I think it was March of 2016. Yes, it was March. It was. And in that time, I had a interview with Taylor Strength Training to go there and become a powerlifting coach, basically, because I wanted to do more specific coaching. And they were a powerlifting gym at the time. Now, they still are powerlifting, but it's more strength sports, so it's powerlifting, Olympic lifting, strongman. So then I had an interview there the week before that comp. I also had a chest infection the few weeks before that comp, so I wasn't going into it in an ideal condition. So then got to the competition, sorry. I wasn't feeling great. I lowered my openers a little bit. I still managed to get some PBs, which I was happy with. I got a 212 squat, a 130 bench, and then I got 250 deadlift again. I failed 257 because by the time the third attempt came around, I was knackered. And I am pretty sure it was the illness from the month before. And then I think I started working at Taylor's the day after, the Monday after that competition, so either the day after or 2 days after. And then a couple of days after that, I was working between Sports Direct and Taylor's. While I was training Sports Direct, I remember squatting and my back just hurt. It just really started hurting. Wasn't too sure what I'd done. Still not too sure exactly what I'd done to it. But I couldn't train. I couldn't really do anything. I was meant to compete again in May, I think it was. I ended up pushing it back to June, maybe July. I can't remember exactly the certificates over there. I'll look later. It took me a while to get back into it, but in that time I decided that while I was injured, I'd focus more on coaching. So I ended up slowly starting to build the group sessions up that I do now. So I started with 1 a month, and then I initially had 4, maybe 5 people in there. 3 of them were completely wanting to do powerlifting, and then a couple of others who just want to sort of do the group setting and the strength training. So it would just literally be 1 Sunday a month. It would just be like just going through a training program. And then as that went on, I then started doing the group once a week, every Wednesday. And at the time, even though I had, I think, 3 people in the group, only 1 of them was consistently showing up. So he was made up. He was getting pretty much 1-to-1 for group prices. And I said to him at the start, I was like, this isn't going to last. Hopefully it's going to be more people in the group. But he was understanding of that. He was happy with that. He's still with me now. So, good. And then just that summer, I just ended up getting 1 more client, then another client, then another client. So then the group ended up going from 1 session a month to 2 sessions a week. And then very quickly afterwards got to 3 sessions a week. And then I think I'm going to stop talking about my competitions now because they don't get any better than those last ones, to be honest with you. I think the first competition I coached at was the bench competition in 2016 with in Cone again. I have 3 clients in that one. All of them did very well. I think they all medalled, if I remember rightly. It's a long time ago. And then after that, I think there's another competition in UTS. I can't remember what it was called, but I had a few entered that one as well. To be honest, if you go back on my YouTube channel, which by the way, you're on right now, so subscribe and like, please. If you go back on the channel, there's a few videos from there of each client, so you can see what each person's done there. So yeah, basically the group just expanded from there. It just got better and better. I had started getting a couple of people that I had started getting really good and started getting better. So I think that sort of shown some legitimacy from me, got me a little bit more popular in terms of coaching, because I went from having 2 or 3 beginners in powerlifting to having a couple of people who finished top 2 or 3 in their weight classes in the Northwest. And then it's basically just gone from there. I mean, in terms of the actual becoming a powerlifting coach, that was it. I just decided to coach powerlifting, and I knew what I was doing because I'd been coaching myself for a while. I had experience of being coached as well, which I don't think it's necessary, but I think it does help because it shows that you understand the accountability side of it. Like there was nothing I was given when coaching that I couldn't have given myself, but I couldn't have given myself the accountability. A lot of people can do that. That's fine. That's good. But not many people can. So the ones who need that accountability, it's always helpful to just be like, okay, rein this in, do a bit more of this, because it's very easy to just do what you feel like rather than doing what you need to do. Yeah, I think I'll leave this bit here for now. I'll come back to this, and then we'll talk a bit more about, I don't know, more powerlifting stuff. So see you soon. So the first part of this video was mainly about my experiences getting into powerlifting. I know a lot of people probably looking at this and hoping for more on how to become a powerlifting coach. To be honest, there aren't too many options in terms of actual qualifications. So for myself at the time, what I did was got a lot of experience as PT. I had about 3-4 years of experience before I actually started coaching for powerlifting specifically. In that time, I'd also done about 6 or 7 competitions as well. And I genuinely think having the experience of being able to handle people on the day and knowing what people are going through in terms of the comp experience, in terms of if something goes wrong. So, you know, if you have a bad competition experience, you can still use that to your advantage in terms of coaching. As I mentioned earlier in this video, the second full competition I did was awful, and I still remember that. I still know how I felt with that. Nearly bombing out on bench at British as well is still with me. I know how that feels. I know how it feels for clients when they go through something similar. It's nerve-wracking. So, but basically, if you wanted to get an actual qualification, there is the British Powerlifting level 1, and I've seen talk of level 2, but I've never actually seen it in person or in practice even. It's a fine qualification. There's nothing wrong with that qualification. However, if you do have a level 3, it doesn't really teach you too much more. If you are the type of person who is qualified as level 2, level 3 PT, and then you're also the type of person who will happily research these things by themselves with maybe just reading about powerlifting training. I was reading dissertations, that kind of thing, from powerlifting coaches, like Mike Teixeira, Mike Sordos, those kind of people. That's probably a good way to go. That's the way I went with it. I didn't do the British Powerlifting one, as at the time I couldn't afford it when I first seen it come around. But also when I look through the contents of it, there was nothing really in it that stood out to me that I didn't feel comfortable with. In terms of teaching all the lifts, I knew how to do that. In terms of programming, I'd learned how to do that myself anyway. Although a lot of people will think that anyway, that they can just teach themselves, and it might not really work. I would suggest having some accountability in that sense. Maybe just, whether that's clients, obviously if what you're doing isn't working, then you need to learn more. In terms of coaching, that is. Maybe having another powerlifting coach who's more experienced, who has done more competitions. So for example, when I worked at Taylor's, there was Danny Taylor there. He'd done more competitions than I had, so that was always helpful. This is where Taylor Strength Training have the intern system. That's good for whether you're a powerlifting coach or just a general, well, not general, but one of the other strength sports. So in terms of actually becoming a powerlifting coach, I think your best way is to take the knowledge that you have and adapt it to powerlifting. Learn powerlifting specific stuff. So coaching in terms of programming, coaching in terms of handling on day, which you're not really going to learn from books or anything like that. You're going to have to go do a competition, which is recommended anyway. If you're into powerlifting, if you want to coach powerlifting, you're probably into powerlifting anyway. So, you know, why wouldn't you have competed? Obviously there might be legitimate reasons, injury, that kind of thing. And this year there's no competitions on. But in terms of actually powerlifting coaching, I'd suggest doing a competition so you know how the day runs, you know how it feels, you know what the worries are, what the concerns are. That'd be the best way to go. I mean, as some of you will know as well, me and Joe were looking at doing a CPD towards this but more on that as it happens. So that'll be the way to go. The next time we do a video about how to become a powerlifting coach, we'll be saying do this course, and there you go. That will help. But beyond that, it's basically learning how to powerlift. Obviously, you're not going to be a very good powerlifting coach if you can't teach the actual movements. You might know what a squat is, but you don't know what squat depth is, then you're not going to be able to coach powerlifting. Obviously, learning the bench movement, learning the deadlift movement, all that kind of thing, how a competition runs. Just get really interested in powerlifting. If you really enjoy it, you will find that it's easy to learn. And once you've done a competition or two, probably do more. It took me about 6 competitions before I realised what mindset it needs to be in to actually lift well. So, and it also took me, I think, 7 competitions to actually go 9 for 9. So there's always stuff to learn. You learn every time you go to a new competition, whether you're coaching or just lifting or both. I would suggest as well trying to separate that. If you can go to a competition, either coach or lift. It's too stressful to do both. I mean, it's doable, but if you really want to do well in either, separate them. So that's the way to go. I think that's my advice for getting into powerlifting coaching. Beyond that, if you disagree, if you have tried a different way of doing it and want to talk about that, mention that in the comments or message me directly. Talk about that. Beyond that, I hope you enjoyed my little 20-minute rant at the start about how, well, not a rant, but 20-minute tale of my life in powerlifting, and then a little bit on powerlifting coaching. So I hope that was what you wanted. So I'll see you next time.